Hey, everybody. So today we have my dear friend, Chris Voss. Now, if you have not heard of Chris Voss, I highly recommend you go ahead before you watch this and Google his name. Chris was the former #1 FBI hostage negotiator. He is currently the CEO of a company called BlackSwan. Chris has been featured in every single publication, has presented everywhere from TED to top organizations all around the world. He's also the author of the #1 best-selling book and also the #1 book on negotiation called Never Split the Difference. So Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
So Chris, I am so selfish about this interview. This is totally for myself. I mean, I have read your book countless of times. I cannot recommend it enough. I have given it to plenty of people, and I will send you the bill for that afterwards. And it's just amazing. And, the first thing I want to touch upon before we jump into it is how the book is written. It's written so simple. It's like a right-minded type of person. And the key lessons at the back is something that you can take right away and just implement into your daily practice of negotiation. And that's absolutely incredible how you did that.
Well, thanks. And I appreciate that. And I'm going to attribute the way the book is written to Tal Raz, our co-author. And Tal is a genius writer. And he was the reason we brought him into the project was specifically because the guy knew how to put together a business book that's really readable. So yeah, the readability of it is definitely thanks to Tal Raz.
Right. I mean, it's incredible. And I can't wait to what you guys come out next to in the book also. It's just amazing. So Let's jump right into it. How does someone with a Midwestern non-negotiator, no-nonsense mother become the #1 FBI hostage negotiator in the world?
You work with great people. I mean, I was into it. I was interested in it. I really wanted to do it. I put in the time. I volunteered on a suicide hotline. I come from a background where, work hard and stay with it. And the suicide hotline was probably the biggest single difference. I was recommended to me that I do that so I could become a hostage negotiator. And that was huge. That was one of the biggest differences of all. I really learned on that hotline the magic of emotional intelligence, if you will. That was what they taught us on the hotline. This stuff is ridiculously powerful.
So let's take a step back for the people that have not read your book yet about how you even ended up on the suicide hotline. Is that you went ahead and you wanted to become a negotiator. Before that, you were a police officer in Pittsburgh. Then you went to the SWAT, and then you obviously had some type of injury, which the SWAT didn't. So you decided you're going to work for the FBI. And then you became interested in negotiation. So you went to your supervisor of negotiation, and let's take it from there.
Yeah, well, I went to see Amy Bondero. Amy was in charge of the negotiation team in New York City. And, I sort of presented myself. I thought I was automatically qualified, I guess, because, I could breathe. I don't know what it was. I figured I was qualified because I knew how to talk, right? That's what negotiators did. They talked, which was wrong. And Amy let me know I had no qualifications, no credentials, no background, no history. And she basically rejected me. And I said, well, no, there's got to be something I can do. There has to be something. And she said, there is, go volunteer on a suicide hotline now, unless and until you've done that. I mean, go away, do it or forget it. And I did it. And she was right. It was huge. And the other thing that was really interesting about it was when I went back to tell her that I volunteered on the hotline, she was shocked that I'd taken her advice. And I was sort of shocked that she was shocked, because I thought, take good advice, but take advice. And, she told me a few years later, she told me she probably told 1,000 people to volunteer on a hotline, and only 2 of us ever did. And so that was what the turning point was.
Wow. That's incredible. And just that point, that for me, when I read that first part was incredible. The fact that, people always say there's no such thing as a clear out rejection. It's about what's underlying it, and we're going to jump into everything, all of that shortly. But the fact that you went ahead and followed it and, people just take advice and throw it out the other window. You took ahead and actually implemented it and did it.
Yeah. I ran across the phrase not that long ago, never take advice from somebody you wouldn't trade places with. you know, but if you would trade places with them and they tell you what to do it.
Right.
And really do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So, you know, negotiation, people look at it as either you have it or don't have it. You know, something that it's an inborn skill or something that, you know, the way you were brought up, you have it. But people don't look at it as something that they're able to just, you know, learn. And obviously that's changing with time. So if you're able to elaborate to us how negotiation is for everyone and how it plays out in our daily lives and how we can actually become better at it.
Yeah, you know, negotiation, we've all got the seeds for it in us. It's really not whether or not, it's not the issue that you don't have it, it's that maybe it hasn't been nurtured yet. I mean, negotiation is emotional intelligence, EQ, if you will. And so let's contrast EQ from IQ. Your IQ is in fact fixed. You're only ever going to get so smart. No matter how many math exercises you do, it's not going to impact your IQ. But your EQ, you can build that. You can nurture that. You can work at it. I remember reading a long time ago that we could build our EQ continuously up until our mid 80s. And I think that's only because that's the limitations on our health are pretty much right now to the mid 80s. And as soon as we're living to be 100 easily, I think we're going to be able to improve our IQ or EQ until age 100. So yeah, you can build it. It's just a little bit of practice, a little bit of attention, study a little, but work at it. And you can absolutely become a better negotiator easily.
Mm-hmm. Right, and negotiation, you know, serves two purposes. You know, it's information gathering and behavior influencing. You know, and that's really where
you sound like you've read my book.
Too many times, you know, and I actually need a new copy because my copy is like too highlighted, way too much. So,
all right, very good.
So, take us back. You know, you graduate from Quantico, you have it. Now you're a negotiator, and you get your first call to go to a hostage negotiation. You know, take us back to September 30th, 1993.
Yeah, well, I was working in New York City, and I was getting ready to do an interview. It was an important interview. I was also working terrorism at the time, and a buddy of mine that was on the negotiation team walked up to me and said, you know, there's a bank robbery in Brooklyn. There's hostages. Let's go. And, you know, we jumped in a car and we went out there. It always takes, you don't get there as quick as they do in the movies. It took us about 2 hours to get to the scene total time from the moment the bank robbery went out, the alarm went out about 8:30 in the morning, and we were on the phone with the bad guys by about 10:30 that morning. And combined team, FBI, NYPD. I was coaching the first negotiator. I ended up being the second negotiator on the phone. And, you know, it was, I applied my suicide hotline crisis intervention skills in the middle of a bank robbery. And I got on the phone probably about 5 hours after negotiations commenced, and about 90 minutes after I was on the phone, I had a bank robber surrender. And it was EQ. I was actually listening to what the people on the other side were saying and dialed into them and gathered information and influenced an outcome, just like what you said before, behavior influencing.
Right. So in that first chapter, when you go into that first story, you touch upon the first tool that someone can use. It's called the late night DJ FM voice. And
right.
Over there is where that's to establish authority, at the same time establish comfort and safety.
You know, and you're picking up on the things, because usually people can establish authority or they can establish comfort. Mm-hmm. And the purpose of that voice, and also the reason why we accelerate outcomes, why we get to deals faster, is if you can do both those things at the same time, if you make somebody feel comfortable, they're going to make a deal with you. And if you know, you're not trying to establish power. Authority is believability. Authority is, you know what you're talking about. Authority is, you're reliable. More than anything else, you're reliable. And you start to establish those things in comfort at the same time, which, you know, the late night FM DJ voice is very soothing. And that hits people in an emotional, it hits their mirror neurons, if you will, that talk about neuroscience. And it calms them down and makes them feel good. And they're more likely to make a deal.
Right. And from there, you know, from there, you use another tool, which is called labeling. And let's go ahead and, I mean, before labeling, let's just think of this mirroring before we get to labeling, is mirroring. And mirroring, I think, is such a phenomenal tool. And I've used it countless of times. And the best thing is that when I started using it, I was so conscious or scared that the other person would pick up on it. But people don't realize when you mirror. So go ahead and explain the mirroring concept.
Yeah, you know, it's ridiculously simple. I mean, it's probably the simplest skill. It's just repeating the last 3 words of what somebody's just said. Now, this is not, a lot of people learn body language mirroring where, you know, if they put their hand to their chin, you put your hand to your chin and you're physically mirroring what they do. This is not it. I mean, the hostage negotiator's mirror is repeating the last 1 to 3 words of what somebody's just said. And people love it. I mean, it's so encouraging. You know, my son, Brandon, who works with me in my company, likes to call it thought connectors. You know, that it helps people connect thoughts when you mirror them and they reword what they've just said and they expanded it. And then the reason why people never see it is because when you mirror somebody, they're probably going to talk for 5 minutes. And then you're going to mirror them again. And they've talked for so long in between your mirrors that they didn't even pay any attention to what you were doing.
Wow. And then you go ahead, from there you have something called tactical empathy.
Well, all of this is, you know, the application of tactical empathy. I mean, it all sort of combines together. And you mentioned labels a moment ago, and that's one of the real specific applications of tactical empathy. And the reason we call it tactical also, because we know so much more about empathy now. We know with neuroscience how the brain actually works. And one of the tactical applications, we know that our brains are wired to be negative. There's a part of the brain called the amygdala, and 75% of the amygdala is dedicated to negativity. So we know that from neuroscience now. Well, the tactical application of that knowledge is if we're mostly negative, then we'll use a label and we'll call out a negative. You know, if you mistrust salespeople and I'm a salesperson, I'm probably going to say, I probably just seem like another non-trustworthy salesperson. Calling out the negative. Neuroscience tells us that when we call out negatives, not when we deny them, but when we just call them out, observe the elephant in the room, it diminishes them. It has a tendency to make them go away. So this is just the tactical application of neuroscience, which, you know, it's tactical neuroscience as well as tactical empathy.
Right. So when the FBI originally came up with all these types of concepts, you know, neuroscience was definitely not as advanced then as it is now. Was this something based upon obviously they used it because it worked, but was it based upon any type of science back then?
No, well, we didn't have the science. I mean, the closest thing we had was psychology, which is a soft science. And before neuroscience, psychologists really did the best they could. I mean, it's like trying to figure out what's going on in another room when you can't see what's going on, but you can hear what's going on. Like, you know, when I was still single, I went on a date with a female FBI agent, and, you know, I took her home, and as you know, I was giving her a goodnight kiss. She happened to find the concealed gun that I had. We both had guns. We're FBI agents. But she was really shocked at how I had a very small, compact 9mm. And she found my gun and she said, "Oh, it's so small." And I remember thinking, you know, if somebody heard you say that, they would absolutely get the wrong impression. So you can't, you know, if you can just hear what's being said, but you can't see what's going on, you're probably going to get the wrong impression in many cases. It's not going to be accurate. And that's kind of what psychology had to cope with before we could see inside people's brains. So you asked me what science was it based on? Hostage negotiation was based on the science of results. we were put in situations where we had to figure out what worked. We had to figure it out fast. And if it didn't work this time, that meant we had to make an adjustment, because when it didn't work, it went really bad.
Right.
So the emotional intelligence of hostage negotiation was really born under pressure, and we found out what worked by applying it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how did you do with it? Knowing that you had people's lives in your hands. You know, you were on the phone with everyone from, you know, people associated with Al-Qaeda to kidnappers in Haiti to everywhere around the world, you know, and that's what you just talked about in the book. I cannot even begin to imagine the stories that are not written there. You know,
well, and this question is, it's the same question as people in business that don't like to negotiate because they're worried about what's going to happen. Am I going to lose the deal? Is this going to go bad? Is this going to cost me my job? Well, when you get the process, it's because people don't know the process. And my time on a suicide hotline taught me a process, a basic framework. Then when I went to the FBI Academy to take the hostage negotiation training, they added to my process. And then by the time I was at that bank, I mean, I had a process that I knew worked. I mean, and I was always taught also best chance of success. There are no guarantees of anything but your best chance. Mm-hmm. And in a business negotiation, what's our best chance of success? Our best chance of success is hearing the other side out. In a hostage negotiation, what's our best chance of success? Our best chance of success is hearing the other side out. Now, the word agreement is not contained in either one of those statements. I can hear you out without agreeing with you. And people love to be heard out, no matter what the circumstances are, whether it's a business deal, whether it's a hostage negotiation. The amount of progress you can make by hearing somebody out is phenomenal.
Right. Now, here's someone out to go ahead and say another thing. You know, the best answer, one of the best things you get in negotiation is beginning negotiation with a no. You know, begin the negotiation with a no. No is the answer you should be looking for. And that's when the actual negotiation starts. You know, in our society, we always aim for the yes. You know, the yes gives us the satisfaction, the confirmation that, you know, something's going to happen. And we'll get into a second, the 3 types of yeses. But why is no the answer we should be aiming for at the beginning of a negotiation? And why is it the start of one?
Well, people feel protected when they say no. People feel safe when they say no. If they feel protected and safe, they can hear you out. I mean, you know, we think this is like parents and children. Some people say kids have learned not to take no for an answer. Well, that's not what really happened. And I look back, you know, when my son, who's now my business partner, when he was a teenager, he'd say, "Dad, can I?" And I'd say no before he finished the sentence. But I look back on that, and every time I said no, I was then willing to hear him out. And that's what kids learn from parents. They learn that people are more likely to hear you out after they've said no, because they feel like they protected themselves. I'd say no to my son, and then I'd hesitate for a minute, and I go, "All right, now run that by me again. What was it that you wanted?" Because now I can listen to him because I've already said no. I've made no commitment to move forward. And that's a human nature dynamic. So when somebody says no, you know, they've let you know where a boundary is, and they feel safe and they feel protected, and the chances that they're actually going to hear you out after that are really high.
Mm-hmm. Right. And the best way you bring out is that saying no is not necessarily directly through actually saying the word no, but it's through asking different questions, how to get the no. For example, you know, instead of saying no, it's like, how am I supposed to do that?
Well, and this is how we express no also. I mean, this is which side of the word are we on now, which side of the idea? I'm trying to express to you that there are limits, and I'm trying to express to you that I need you to take a bigger picture. So instead of just saying no and expecting you to figure out, I'll say, how am I supposed to do that? Mm-hmm. Which causes you to start to figure it out. I mean, that's the purpose of that phrase, is to make you engage in some thinking in a way that you feel you chose to, that, you know, I did it in a deferential manner, because people love to be asked how to do stuff anyway. So I'm playing to your ego by saying, how am I supposed to do that?
Right. And that's one of the most amazing things. I remember when I read the book, you know, the first 3 things, I mean, my vocabulary now consists of what, how, and it. You know, is it what happened or what, or how am I supposed to do that? Or it seems like, it looks like, and, you know, which goes into another tactic you have is bending their reality. And I'd love for you to elaborate on that, because I felt that chapter was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, well, our view of loss distorts reality for us. Daniel Kahneman won the Nobel Prize in Behavioral Economics in 2002 for this idea. And actually, he and Amos Tversky created it together. It's called prospect theory. Kahneman wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And it's just that as human beings, we distort loss. We distort it by double, at least. You know, losing $5 hurts twice as bad as gaining $5. That's a distortion of reality. So bearing that in mind, I know that loss is going to distort your reality, going to bend it for you. And we like to say, ignore human nature at your peril. I mean, I may not like that that's true, but it's true. And your decision making on what you perceive the loss is going to be based around what you know, that's going to be the biggest impact on your decision making. How much am I going to lose if I do this? What have I got at stake? What do I stand to lose? What do I lose if I don't do this? Then becomes the decision factor. If I've got a potential deal for you, I'm not going to pitch to you how much you're going to gain by doing the deal. I'm actually going to start with what will you lose by not doing the deal? You know, the status quo, to get somebody to change away from how they're doing things now, or the status quo, has to cost them.
Right.
And at that point in time, that's going to bend their reality. It's going to distort their reality. And that's what makes people most likely to make a deal. The loss that they're avoiding by making that deal.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, when in the heat of negotiation, you know, either because you might lose something or it's getting heated, our amygdala is going to take over our neocortex, meaning that our emotions are going to take over our sound thinking mind, that we're not going to be able to be present and clearly, you know, think clearly. You know, the tips in the book are absolutely amazing. But when it comes, you know, push comes to shove, when we're in the moment, we can forget all that. You know, we can have the best strategy out there. How do we keep present and calm? How do we go about that?
Well, you know, the real issue, it's not emotions that are bad, it's negative emotions. Mm-hmm. Like anger, fear, concern, you know, all the different diluted down versions of fear. If you're concerned, if you feel anxious, that's a version of fear. That actually interferes with our ability to make a good decision. Positive emotions actually enhance our ability to make decisions. So, you know, let's start with drawing that distinction. In a positive frame of mind, you see patterns quickly, you have more mental agility, you have more mental endurance. You want to be in a positive frame of mind. As stupid as it sounds, getting back to this label concept, simply recognizing negativity diminishes it. It begins to wash it away. It begins to dilute it. If you're feeling concerned, I'll say to myself, look, I'm worried, I'm concerned. And I'll repeat it, because every time I self-label, that causes it to go away a little bit, a little or a lot. I'm just going to continue to apply that observation, that labeling, till it goes away entirely. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to end up being very aggressive with it. And if I sense negatives in emotions in you, and I need you to clear your thinking, mm-hmm. I'm going to say, look, you know, looks like you feel sad. It looks like you're concerned. It looks like you're worried. Every single time I call those negatives out, I call out the elephant in the room, it makes it smaller.
Right. You should be talking about creating a book about positive psychology. You know, forget about negotiation. Now, how do you constantly keep positive?
You know, well, it's routines and habits. I mean, I live in Southern California these days, and it's almost a cliche. Everybody in California wants to be like, I'm so grateful. But gratitude is a hack. I mean, gratitude is the mind frame that you move, puts you in a positive mind frame. You move your life forward. Gratitude is really, happiness is the path to success. Gratitude is the path to success. You get to success faster in a positive and grateful frame of mind. You don't become content. You don't You don't sit back. You don't get lazy with gratitude. You actually become more motivated because you're happier about life, and you're gonna do more.
Do more?
Very nice. That was a mirror for everybody that's paying attention. And I am compelled to say, yeah, do more. I mean, achieve more. Get more satisfaction out of life by achieving more. You know, it's gratitude's a hack.
So then let's talk about, you know, your life hacks, because that's what I'm most interested to know about. Stuff that, how do you implement, you know, you obviously mentioned gratitude. You know, what are your habits and patterns for you to create the best version of Chris possible?
Yeah, taking time out to stretch my muscles, exercising. I mean, all the cliche stuff. Right amount of sleep. I don't meditate anywhere near enough. I mean, I minimally meditate. I might get 3 minutes in a given day, but any sort of maintenance ends up expanding your capacities. So that, you know, I love a 14-hour day. I love a 16-hour day. The only way I'm gonna have that much fun in a day, getting that much done that I enjoy, because I enjoy what I do for a living, is to eat right, is to exercise, is to stretch, is to meditate, is to do gratitude meditation. Think of 3 things first thing in the morning that I'm grateful for. Or at any given point in the day, think about something I'm grateful for. Any of these tiny little things, they begin to accumulate, and you get more done, and you actually enjoy your life a lot more.
Right. So then let me ask you, what is one non-obvious habit they believe changed your life?
You know, and it's whether or not I practice it on a regular basis, but I remember reading a long time ago, find 3 new things each day in your world that you like. You know, there's a reason, one of the reasons that social media is so compelling, and we like everything. You know, you like a posting, you want people to like. There's something about a like in your head that gets you a small hit of dopamine, a small hit of serotonin. It makes you happier. You're compelled to it. You're drawn to it. So you start looking around your world. You take a short walk, find, you know, there's a tree on my block that I didn't notice before. You know, I kind of like that tree. Mm-hmm. If you're looking for 3 new things in your world each day that you like, that cumulative effect is your life suddenly becomes more effective. You get more done. You have better relationships. So you're talking about tiny little things that, when they begin to accumulate, begin to make a huge difference. And looking for 3 things each day new that you like is a great, simple way to really have a much more enjoyable and effective life.
So what were the 3 things today that you're grateful for?
Oh, well, today, you know, I'm grateful for the carpet in my office. I am grateful for the fact that I got a stand that I can put my iPhone on if I want to shoot a video. I'm grateful for the fact that I was out with a friend last night, and we're in a restaurant in LA, and Steve Tisch, the part owner of the Giants, walked in, and I got introduced to him. I mean, the tiny little things. You don't need big things. You just need little things.
Mm-hmm. So are your friends afraid to negotiate with you? Or
no. It's not whether or not you're a good negotiator. It's what you're trying to do with the skills. Mm-hmm. And my friends and people that know me and people that do business with me know that I want a great deal for both of us. You know, I want you to be delighted with our deal. I want you to want to continue to do business with me for 60 more years.
Right.
So if I'm trying to take you to a better deal, you're going to want to go along. Mm-hmm. Now, the only people that you should be afraid to negotiate with are people that are trying to hurt you, people trying to exploit you, people trying to cheat you. So it's not the skills; it's what people are trying to do with the skills.
Mm-hmm. And I'll take it a step further. And I'd love to get your opinion on this. Is that, you know, part of the book, you know, I would recommend it to everyone looking to understand people better. And it's not necessarily negotiation skills, but more communication skills or ways how to look beneath the surface of the unsaid, communication that is going on.
Very good.
And
Yeah.
that is there's so much to learn in that book. It never split the difference about it. So even our conversation, the conversation that's happening under it, like our emotions, how are they connecting? Or what are the feelings that are happening? And that we're able to establish that through what you mentioned in the book is, and you mentioned already, labeling and through accusation audits. And bringing those, either the negative or the positive feelings out into the surface,
Yeah, I mean, the power of surfacing negatives is just insane.
Right.
I mean, it moves things ahead so much more quickly. And basically, in negative emotions, the reasons we won't do something are always more impactful than the reasons we will, the negatives. And so it's 3 times the impact on our thinking. Again, we talked about the amygdala before. 3/4 of the amygdala is dedicated to negative emotions. So, but then we find out through neuroscience, and hostage negotiators find out through application, just calling out the negatives had a tendency to make them go away. Shine a light on a shadow, however you want to look at it. So if I know negatives are the biggest problem and I know how to make them go away, then all I got to do is what you mentioned before, the accusations audit. Let me make a list of the accusations that you have against me. Let me call them all out to you. And that's going to make them go away. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm. And, after that accusations audit, there's another great answer to lead someone to. And in the book, you describe how you're negotiating with a terrorist called Abu Sayyaf. And Abu Sayyaf was obviously associate of Al-Qaeda. And you had a negotiation with him, and there was no progress being made because he was taking the negotiation to a place that you guys had no intention of going to, blaming America for something that happened for the oppression for 500 years.
Right.
And eventually, in order to change that negotiation process, you had to get him to a place in order to say 2 magic words.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. So why is that's right? One of the best possible answers you could lead someone to in a negotiation.
Well, yeah, and that's what we want to get out of the other side. To be clear, not necessarily what we're trying to say. So when a human being says that's right, that's what they say when they feel completely understood, completely. And that's when they say, not just completely understood, but what you just said was so true. I'm going to say that's right. I mean, whatever side of the political spectrum you're on in the United States, the last presidential election when, Trump and Clinton were debating in the last political debate, when one of those candidates said something that you loved, you didn't say you're right, you said that's right. When we were all in with that candidate, when they said something, we said that's right. And it's sort of a way to declare we're completely with the other person. We feel dialed in. We feel like we're on the same team, not just the same sheet of music, but we're on the same team. And when you can trigger that sort of response from your counterpart, when they look at you and they say, you know what, right now we are on the same team. We see this exactly alike. That's where great collaboration is born. And that's where the other side is going to start giving you your deal. I mean, you want to when they feel they're on your team, they're going to give you your deal because they trust you. They feel that you resonate. They feel that you guys are headed the same direction. And that's how you trigger great deals. Right. You get the other person to feel like you're on the same team. And of course, you got to back it up. But the real issue on a deal is not whether or not we agreed. It's what we're going to do after we've agreed. And the only way it's going to work is if we feel like we're on the same team.
Right. And on the opposite spectrum of that's right, you have you're right, or it's right, or yes, it's right, which is what we're trying to move away from. Because
you're right is what people say to us when they're trying to get us to shut up. I mean, I mean, we all do this too. I mean, you know, whoever listens to this, I guarantee you, you as a listener, in the last 7 days, you said you're right to probably 4 different people on 4 different occasions to get them to shut up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're trying to maintain a relationship either because you want to or you have to. They're a colleague, a coworker, a boss, a member of your family. You're maintaining the relationship or you just want to stop talking. So you look at them and you say, you're right. And they stop talking and they're happy and they leave you alone.
Which leads to another thing. And, you know, there's 3 types of yeses. There's a confirmation yes, a commitment yes, and I forgot the 3rd type of yes, but the counterfeit yes.
Dreaded counterfeit yes. Yes. The fake yes.
You know, it's funny. A lot of, you know, I deal with a lot of different countries and businesses. And besides America, a lot of people, you know, will take, for example, the Indian culture, which I deal a lot with. And they're very nice people. And the problem with dealing with very nice people is they have a problem saying no. So over there, for example, in order to get a confirmation, it's either you have to get a yes, yes, a double yes, or it's always a yes, no, like you said. And then once I read the book, I'm like, wow, this is exactly the same exact thing. You know, and so the power of 3, of getting to those 3 yeses. And I want you to elaborate on that. And I love how the fact that you said it's not about getting them to say yes 3 times, but it's bringing it out in 3 different ways. You're not going to go, hey, say yes, say yes, say yes, but asking those 3 calibrated questions in order to get them to repeat those yeses.
Right. And there's a subtle distinction that some people get confused by, because the one thing that is stupid is the yes momentum, where you get 3 different yeses, and each one you're trying to lead somebody a little further down the path, and each one is a separate, what they call micro agreement. Now, this is all crap, and it's really bad. It's a really bad practice. But what you're driving at is getting yes to the same question 3 times, not 3 different questions, the same question, and getting an elaboration on it. And it really helps people think. It really helps cement a commitment in their head. And if there's not a commitment in their head, or if the first yes was a counterfeit yes or the fake yes, the second yes they're going to hesitate on. They're going to give you some real serious body language tells. They're going to go, yeah. Now there's a lot of body language there that should tell you that there's a real problem here. And also what we do, we get back to this label tool that we talked about earlier. You know, we're gonna pivot to the problem without making the other person feel accused. If somebody gives you a yeah, what you would do is they're demonstrating hesitation. So you label the hesitation and you say, you know, I heard you say yes. It seems like you're hesitant. And with that label, people are going to feel like it's safe to come out. You know, you're telling them that you're paying really close attention to them. And you're telling them that you sense there's a problem, while simultaneously you're not backing them into a corner.
Right.
You're giving them the complete freedom of response. And that's really what opens dialogue up, makes the other person, again, feel like we might be on the same team here. You know, maybe I can collaborate. Maybe you're not going to jump down my throat. Maybe I'm not going to be accused. I can tell you what I'm hesitant about without being attacked over it. Maybe I'm hesitant because I made a mistake. You know, I just thought of something I didn't think of before. Now I'm scared to tell you. How can I communicate to you that there's a problem and sort of test you? I mean, a lot of this is testing behavior. Is it safe for me to tell you the truth? Because people get jumped on so much because they don't know how to tell the truth. So, you know, we want to give people the chance to communicate to us that there's a problem.
Right. How does the master of negotiation, you know, further his own skills? Now you're the number one. You're the guy that, you know, if something happens, they're calling up. How do you go ahead and your own skills, you know, get better at that, you know?
Yeah, this stuff is perishable. I mean, Tiger Woods gets out on a practice course constantly. You know, Tiger Woods, who recently got back to the top of the game, you know, he gets there with practice. he didn't say, hey, look, I won a Masters. I don't need to go back out on the driving range. I don't need to practice. Did Tiger Woods quit practicing after he won a Masters? No. So, and is he practicing in a tournament? Is his practice high stakes? No, he's back out there with small stakes practice. So what am I driving at here? I practice with the guy at Starbucks, guy or gal at Starbucks. I practice with my Lyft driver. I practice understanding, hearing people out. And I love the Lyft drivers, because I'll get in a Lyft and I'll say something like, boy, it seems like a busy day, just to test them. That's a label. It seems like he had to wait for me for a long time. I'll bet you're tired of passengers who are jerks. The small stakes practice. And the Starbucks person is especially good because there's a guy that started this website phenomena called Secrets. And he said, send me your secrets anonymously. I don't care what they are. I'm going to publish them. So send them to me anonymously, but send me your secrets. Mm-hmm. So he gets a brand new Starbucks cup as an indicator that it's from somebody that actually works at Starbucks. And the secret is, I give decaf to people who are mean to me. So you better practice being nice with your Starbucks clerk, because otherwise you're going to think you're developing a tolerance for caffeine when in fact you're getting decaf because you were mean.
Wow. This practicing of, not the practicing, but true, the practicing part, just about every interaction is something else to learn from. And I remember, and I'll give you like a side note, when I actually read the book, so one of the first things I did after the book in order to practice was I wanted to see if I was able to get a discount using my, the Ephraim discount. So I actually called up Zappos, because Zappos customer service, you could just call them up and they speak to everyone. So it's great to get on the phone. And that was my practice way of doing negotiation, was actually calling up Zappos. And I hope, no one else does that, or let someone else do that. You had an interaction with Jack Welch. And you got him to come to your class and give a lecture. And the way you got him to do that was through proposing a no question, of simultaneously giving him the power to say no. So go ahead and explain to us that interaction, what happened then.
Well, yeah, I mean, I went to a book signing. Jack and his wife, Susie, are signing their most recent book at the time, The Real Life MBA. This was probably about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And there's 200 people at the book signing, long lines. They're busy as heck. They're trying not to let you talk to Jack Welch for long because there's 300 people in line. Everybody's got to get the book signed. And I have not introduced myself, so I'm just another guy at the book signing. He doesn't know me from anybody. And I walk up and I just say, "Is it a ridiculous idea for you to come and speak at the negotiation course I teach at USC?" And he froze. I mean, he just froze. And it took me, what did that take? 3 seconds to get that question out. One question. If you got one question, it better be a no-oriented question. We refer to this as, driving for a no. And he completely froze, and he looks up, and he looks past me, and he kind of looks up and to his left, and he just like gets this ridiculously intense look on his face. And he just freezes with this. I mean, he had a scowl, a hideous scowl on his face, and he didn't move. And when he didn't move, I mean, I thought he looked furious. I thought I gave him a stroke or something. I thought, dude just had a stroke. He just died. And they're going to blame me for making him so furious that he had a stroke and died. And so when he initially doesn't die, I'm kind of relieved. But he still doesn't unfreeze from this hideous scowl on his face. And finally, he sort of unfreezes, and he looks back at me, and he says, "This is my personal assistant's name. This is a Twitter account we have set up to communicate with her. I will call her and tell her who you are and what you want. I think we're going to be in Los Angeles in the fall. If we are, we'll come in and speak at your class." All as a result of the single no, the no-oriented question. That's what we refer to it. I'm trying to get a no out of somebody. One single question took me 3 seconds to ask that no and move the ball down the line. I mean, a calibrated no is worth at least 5 yeses, at least.
Mm-hmm. So when you meet somebody, and I'm sure you've met plenty of high official people, and are you always going for that no calibrated question in your first interaction?
Well, on anything important with anybody, I'm getting it out of from a no. I mean, yes it's sometimes I'll accidentally ask a yes question, and it'll only be with my company internally. We had a meeting earlier today. I might throw out a yes question because we're all on the same team. We don't have to be worried about getting conned with this yes crap momentum nonsense where people are trying to con us. So I may slip out a yes oriented question then. Does it seem like I got it? But if it's important or with everybody else, I'm always going for a no. Do you disagree? Are you against? Do you reject? Is this a bad idea? Is this a ridiculous idea? If it's important, and especially if I need a reaction right now, right this second, I'm getting it through a no, because people have no hesitancy on pulling a trigger on a no matter how tired they are, no matter what the question is. I mean, it's insane, but it works incredibly effectively.
Right. And another word you say that should be, it shouldn't be used constantly, is the word why. Because why?
Yeah.
Right. So, why makes people feel accused of something?
Right.
Why did you do that? Or why?
Right.
So when are the times you should be using the word why?
Yeah. Well, why? Excuse me. Always makes people feel accused. They make it feel defensive. Now, we might not always ask somebody why, intending to tell them that we think they're wrong.
Right.
You may genuinely not know and ask why. But the problem is when we do think people are wrong, we always ask why. Like if I think you're wrong, I'm going to say, why'd you do that? And so we're conditioned worldwide, globally, that when somebody thinks that we've made a mistake, they're going to ask us why. It happens to us too often. It's an instantaneous, we're battered by it. Mm-hmm. My son contends that, that when we were two, when we did something wrong, the closest adult to us pointed at us and said, why did you do that? And we started getting it beaten into our head, no matter what culture we're from, that why is we did something wrong. We don't know what it was, but we did something wrong. So that's the first problem. Now, the second problem, let's take that why instantly creates defensiveness. It's only to my advantage to create defensiveness if you're defending me. So, if I was trying to get you to let me be on your podcast, and I might say, why would you ever want a hostage negotiator on your podcast? Well, you're going to defend that choice. I want you to defend a choice that favors me. And you'll say, well, hostage negotiators, I mean, you guys had all kinds of high stakes negotiations. I mean, hostage negotiation, that has to be emotional intelligence. I'm going to get you kicking those ideas out now yourself, which means if you said them, they matter more than if I said them. Right. So if you're leery of doing business with me, I'm going to say, well, why would you do business with me? Because you're going to kick out the reasons for doing it, and then those reasons will matter because you said them. They were your idea.
Which brings to the point of leading them to your answer, what you want them, what you just said over there. There had to be somebody, some kidnapper that was on your level of negotiation. There had to be a tick for tat, something that was either not in the book or something that you felt like this guy is next level.
Well, I ran into talented people, different sorts of talents all along the way. And the guy early on in the Chase Bank, the bank robbery with hostages we were talking about a little bit ago, I mean, that guy really threw us a curveball, and we didn't realize it at the time, but he was manifesting the characteristics of the greatest CEO negotiators because he made himself seem weak in the conversations, like a really smart, influential negotiator. The most important person on the other side of the team is the person that's going to pretend like they got no power, because They don't want you to corner them at the table. They don't want you driving them for commitment at the table. They're going to say, it's not up to me. I got a board of directors. I mean, I got so many people I got to answer to. Well, in the bank robbery, and this was very early in my career, the bank robber who was the mastermind, it called all the shots. He said, these other guys in here, they're so much more dangerous than I am. I mean, I'm scared of these guys. Right. They got guns. I don't know what. As a matter of fact, I got to get off the phone right now before one of them catches me talking to you. Like, that guy was in complete control the whole time. And they didn't realize it at the time, but boy, did we learn afterwards. And I studied that guy in depth, and lo and behold, we're out in the business world now. And when I went through Harvard, I had one guy say, always blame the people that are not in the room. If you can make the decision yourself, you don't want your counterpart knowing that. Blame the people that are not in the room. And I remember thinking, like, wow, that's exactly what that bank robber did. Yeah. So, I learned a lot from that guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is, like, that point is just don't use pronouns. Like you mentioned in the book. Because anybody that says I, me, that they're not in charge. If someone says we, they, those are usually, like you mentioned, are the most important people. And I love how there's a specific chapter you said how to spot liars or the fakers. Someone that has to use many words to explain their point, or someone uses fancier words. Usually, those are the guys that are just not telling the truth.
Right. Yeah. Some people refer to that as the Pinocchio effect. Pinocchio, when he was lying, his nose got long. I mean, the Pinocchio effect in words. I mean, the more words they use to convince you, that correlates very strongly with someone who's deceiving you. I mean, and the reason they do that is because they know they're deceiving you. And so they're worried, so they're going to keep talking.
Right.
And that's a strong correlation. It's not a guarantee. But the more somebody tries to convince you, you should be worried. And, conversely, the less they try to convince you, that actually correlates really positively with people who are telling the truth. Mm-hmm. That's a hard one for people to wrap their mind around because, they're talking to me like I'm stupid. I mean, we feel like we're being spoken down to when people are very terse with us. And consequently, we'll misinterpret that, well, he's just trying to bully me. He must be wrong. And the terse, concise person, again, it's not a guarantee, but it's a strong correlation to telling the truth.
Right. So tell us about Project 120.
I'm going to live to be 120 years old.
How are you going to do that?
Yeah, I mean, all the biological hacks that are out there now. I mean, and the medical profession is telling us that they figure sometime about 30-ish years, we're going to solve quantum computing next 20 to 30 years, which then means we're going to solve nearly every health problem with that. So, you only got to last about 30 more years and they're going to solve the health problem. So, what are the hacks in the meantime? Ketogenic diet, high fat diet, be careful of being too acidic in your diet. It's not protein. It's not animal protein per se that's bad. It's how the animal protein is raised.
Right.
Vegetable protein per se is not good. Some vegetable protein is very acidic. So do the research. I mean, I ran across one recently that kind of blew me away. I'll think of her name. Rhonda Patrick. Mm-hmm. Has been on Tim Ferriss's, been on Joe Rogan. She throws out a stat recently, 30-minute dry sauna 5 times a week, 40% decrease in mortality rates due to all causes. Right. Like insane biological hacks. Dry sauna. You want to live long? Start hitting a dry sauna. That information is out there. Take the time, and you're going to clear 100. You're going to clear the age of 100 without that much trouble. And in a healthy, enjoy being 100. Right. Going out there running relay races. Water skiing, mountain climbing, not in a wheelchair, but being vibrant and active.
Right. Which brings us, living to 100 and our body's working, that's great. But I want to live to 120 and my mind working.
Well, those are hand in hand. Yeah, you definitely you want both things to be functioning at a high level at the same time. I agree 1,000%.
So tell me, what is on your bookshelf currently?
Well, let's see. Behind me we have, but I just bought several books by Joe Dezpenza.
Okay.
Because there was a great documentary on Netflix called Heal.
Mm-hmm.
And I had forgotten that I ran across Joe Dezpenza recently, but his recent book is Becoming Supernatural. Okay. And a previous book that I also bought is called You're the Placebo. Okay. And, scientists have written off something for medical scientists for years called the placebo effect. And they can't get around, they got to give people placebos when they have an illness and it's a sugar pill. And lo and behold, they get better anyway. Mm-hmm. When they're trying to find out whether or not this medicine happened. Well, what the reality of the situation is that you can heal yourself with your brain in the right frame of mind, which is why Joe Dispenza's book, You Are the Placebo, how to get in a frame of mind that heals your body. Mm-hmm. So I'm into that stuff also very much because it's interwoven with human performance, and negotiation is human performance. And if you're studying better negotiation, you're going to get into this area anyway.
Right. That's amazing. And then what books would you recommend for someone to read? I mean, number one book obviously is Never Split the Difference. That's number one. But for someone else that wanted to learn more about emotional intelligence, negotiation, communication, what are the top books you recommend for them to start and read?
Two top books that go along with it that supplement. I'll give you three. Okay. Three top books. The Rise of Superman by Stephen Kotler. It's about human performance in a mind state of flow. It's very much interwoven with what we're just talking about. The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. The Talent Code is about building your talent. Coyle contends that there's no such thing as a prodigy. They just started getting their 10,000 hours in before anybody else noticed. Mm-hmm. And it's very specifically how to accelerate your learning. It's great stuff. The third book is Barking Up the Wrong Tree by Eric Barker, and it is also the science of success across the board. Eric is one of the most well-read guys on a planet. He writes and distills information from literally hundreds of books on success and has really compiled it into a great book called Barking Up the Wrong Tree, Science of Success.
And together with that, definitely Never Split the Difference.
You got an awesome library. You put those four books together. Yeah.
Right. So tell us about, and if people wanted to find out more information about you, more information about BlackSwan, you also have your Tuesday morning blog post, which I highly recommend everyone to sign up to. And you'll please tell us how to sign up for that and where we can find more information about you in general.
Yeah, our newsletter, our Tuesday morning blog post. I mean, it comes out via email once a week, short and sweet. Tuesday mornings, hit your sweet spot early in the week where you're really ready to pick up some momentum. A short, sweet article, one article, not a bunch, so that some newsletters has so much information you don't know where to start, so you don't start. Mm-hmm. The newsletter is also the gateway to everything we do. We have training announcements. In this year we got 13 training events across the country. Wow. From New York to Los Angeles, Atlanta, Orlando, Boston, Chicago. Announcements of when and where on the training is going to be in the newsletter. You can click on that, find out where we're training. We got free material. We're going to tell you about it in the newsletter. We got a video course coming out later over the next couple of weeks. Phenomenal course video. Expensive. It ain't cheap. But if you want to take your negotiations to the next level and it's worth it to you to do so, you're going to want that. You're going to want to find out about that course. So anyway, how do you sign up for the newsletter? How you sign up is text to sign up. The number you text to is 22828. Again, the number you're texting to is 22828. The message you send to 22828 is FBI empathy, all one word, lowercase, no space between FBI and empathy. Your spell check is going to want to autocorrect and put a space in there. make it all one word. FBI empathy, all one word, lowercase, to 22828, and you get a response back asking for your email. And it is a gateway to everything that we do. It's a gateway to the website. It's a gateway to everything. The newsletter is the best way to stay in touch and to continue to get better.
So that's 22828, text FBI empathy, one word.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
That's right.
So I highly recommend we do that. And I personally cannot wait to take one of your courses or something, because I think it's definitely beneficial to every aspect in life.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, Chris let's imagine Chris, just leaving college, and he has the whole entire world in front of him. He could go ahead and become a barista at Starbucks and serve decaf cafe to the people he doesn't like, or he could become, continue working for the SWAT, FBI hostage negotiator, or he could become, the pitcher on the Yankees. What message do we tell him? We tell a younger self looking out of the world for the first time?
Just be a little nicer. My particular default type, I'm a natural born assertive. So I'm pretty direct and pretty honest and pretty blunt. I wouldn't change any of my decisions. I would have just been nicer about how I implemented them, how I said them, how I did them. I'd still say the same things I said to people. I just try to say them a little bit nicer, take a couple of miles an hour off of my fastball, if you were, so that my words still landed, but they're going to land a little more gently, which means they're going to land more effectively.
Right. Mm-hmm. And then what message do we have for people? It's the last message for people to come, one tool that they can implement, that you highly recommend that they can't not live without. You recommend that they should implement into their life, to become better, in order for them to live to 120 or to become better negotiators at life themselves. What do you recommend? That one thing.
Something real simple. Just hear the other side out first.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to agree to hear somebody out. I mean, you don't have to make an agreement with what they're saying to hear them out. I mean, hearing somebody out is not agreement. Draw that line. You're going to be shocked at how many more times they're going to agree with you.
Right.
If you've heard them out first. Just try it and see what happens. Try it 5 times. See where it gets you. So,
Chris, there's so much more. So the first thing is, for anyone that didn't read, I highly recommend you go ahead again. Never Split the Difference. You can get it in a book, audiobook, Kindle. It's out there. And, and not only that, you can see behind Chris, there's so many different languages. I see Spanish. I see a few others. Is it almost, I don't know, how many languages is it written in?
I think we're in at least 25 languages now.
25 languages.
Around the world. Yeah.
So people don't have an excuse. So I highly recommend it. So Chris, thank you so much for doing this. I have learned a tremendous amount. I have learned it was great to connect with you and finally get to know the person that wrote this incredible book, and to hear your story and to hear the skills and different things that I can actually implement into my own life. So I want to thank you very, very much.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on. It was a fun conversation. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.